Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Vale if it's your first time here, and I am a Colombian American sewist living in Colombia right now. I've recently moved, and so I've been making a lot of vlogs about, living in Colombia, sewing, but also moving and setting up my new home. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around. January felt hectic because obviously, there are a lot of things going on in the world. Like everything going on in the US right now is extremely heavy. And so I definitely have not been immune to that. That has been something that has been consuming a lot of my brain space this past month. I've been trying to do my part from here, calling my senators, calling my Congress people, donating, being aware. But it is really heavy, right? Like I don't live in the US anymore. It's sad to see. And anyway, that has been something that has been difficult. I also had a lot of work this month. I had a couple of projects that were extremely time intensive the first couple of weeks of the month. And I was working very long hours because I was taking some time off with my friends, to be with my friends. And so I just had to kind of like put that work in. And then aside from that, my friends came. We went to the Bad Bunny concert, which was really, really beautiful, really great. It was just wonderful to see my best friends again and my sister and my cousin. And we had a phenomenal time. We went to Bogota, we went to Santa Marta, like the beach, and then we went to the concert. I actually have a video about all of this on my channel. I also made my look, which is a big part of that video. I made my own outfit for the concert, and it was great. I think especially because things have been so hard for us all, they're visiting me from the US. It was a beautiful moment with all of us sort of like, making each other laugh and going on different sightseeing, sort of day trips. It was a beautiful, beautiful time. And then my sister stayed an extra week once my friends left after the concert. She stayed an extra week and we had, again, a beautiful time together. Every time I'm with my sister, it just feels so much more fun and so much more, like peaceful, if that makes sense. Even though we do a lot, it just feels like kind of like I feel more at ease when she's around. And I'm gonna miss her a lot, but we already have some plans to see each other in the spring, so that'll be fun. And I'll try not to be too sad because I always get really sad when she leaves. But yeah, that's kind of what took up my January. January was very, very hectic. And so given all of those things, I have let some personal things go by the wayside. So I'm gonna kind of run you through some of the things I want to accomplish. I'm gonna sort of call this 1 week. So it is Sunday, February 1st. I want to try to accomplish these things by, let's say, Saturday. Because it's not a lot. Again, I'm not trying to push myself too hard. It's just sort of like some things that I want to do to reset and to feel centered and to sort of like in my mind have sort of like a beginning of the year, a true beginning of the year that I haven't really had. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is sort of like a big clean. I have a really heavy dust allergy, so I definitely want to make sure I go through and clean the whole house, clean all the spaces, get into that, like take an allergy medicine and just get really in there, clean all the dust. Actually, I already started this, so this is kind of cheating, but I want to finish that. I want to make sure all the spaces are clean. I also want to do a spiritual cleanse. This is not just, a kind of like deep clean, but it's also a beginning of year clean, if you will. So I want to sort of set my intentions and do a spiritual cleansing and do some, some herbs and some woo-woo stuff. And I know it sounds kind of very woo-woo, but it does make me feel good at the beginning of the year to sort of like release all of the bad and welcome in all the good, welcome in the prosperity, all of that. So I'm going to do a little bit of that today. So I definitely want to do both those parts, a deep clean and a spiritual clean. Again, I kind of already started on the deep clean, but I definitely haven't tackled this room. Some of the things that have happened in the last month have completely blown up this studio. The first is that I broke my machine. Okay, well, I actually took all of my stuff to Bogota to sew. This is all in the other video because I was going to make my sister a look and my cousin a look. And then I took my machine to Bogota and then I plugged it in weird and the thing exploded. And I was like, oh my God, my machine connector and the cord exploded. And I was like,
lead us not into temptation, but deliver us.
Like, what am I supposed to do now? And then I had to go get it fixed. But my serger was already getting fixed because my serger broke months ago. And I finally went to go get it fixed. And thankfully they were able to fix both. And so I have my machines in boxes. So I have to unbox those. Actually, let me show you what they look like. Yeah, so my machines are over here. I have to sort of like put all those things away. I also put a bunch of stuff in that box for my sewing that didn't actually end up happening. So I have to organize all of that. While we've been gone, we've also been leaving the bikes in here so that they don't get wet and rusted. So I have to move those out. And of course, the laundry area is a mess as per usual. There's some other things around the studio. It is very messy. I left it in kind of a mess because I left in a hurry. There's a bunch of fabric over here that I'm actually kind of scared to touch because I'm like, there are definitely spiders in there. And like, I don't know, but whatever. Those are some of the things that I have to clean up in here. But I'm excited because my serger has actually not even seen the inside of this space since I moved, and now I'm gonna have that all set up and ready to go. Okay, and you obviously can't have a beginning of the year without a vision board. So I will be making my 2026 vision board this week. I love making vision boards. I've been making them for over 6 years. I think this is going to be my 6th year, so that's pretty cool. And I tend to go with less literal vision boards because I think that's how I started. I definitely started in that school of like, I'm going to print all the things that I want. I'm going to put them on the board. And that was nice, but it was very specific. And I feel like for me, that didn't feel as authentic as like the feeling that I wanted. And I think that is a big part of manifestation as well, is like you have to access the feeling. And so I have been taking a more creative approach to the vision board and just sort of like, what is it that I want to access? Like I want to flow like water. I want things, I want beauty. I want to be in nature. I want it right. Like, so that collage like style has been something that I've been really enjoying. And I look forward to this every year. Okay, so I'll be making my vision board. Now I also want to go take my vision board to get framed because this is something I started doing last year. And it's really cute to put up your vision board. Like in the back, I taped up like because before I do my vision board, I do some journaling and I do some sort of like wish setting stuff. So I tape that back up on the back of the vision board. I also light a candle as I'm doing this. So then I take that little candle, like the little tea candle, whatever's left, and I also glue that on the back of the vision board so that kind of energetically is all sitting together. And then I put it up somewhere so I'm like constantly seeing it, right? Like that is the important part of like accessing that feeling. So this year I want to frame it and I want to put it in here so that I'm constantly looking at it, but also because the walls are a little blank. So I'm going to take that. That's also something that I want to do this week, is take a few things to get framed. Okay, I have quite a lot of things to get framed actually. I follow this Instagram artist called Pants, I think, or Pants World. And I actually don't even know, whatever. They're so funny. Like their comics, I've been just loving Instagram comics. I think that there's just a subset of artists doing some super hilarious things for adults. Anyways, this is one of my favorite ones and they sell prints. So I got a few for Christmas. This one is so funny. Again, it's like a little to the right and it's like the butt. That's the thing. It's silly. Like, listen, it's not for everyone. This one I love. I think this one is for my husband's office because he loves this one too. This one is so funny. Look at that. And so this one I'm going to put in the guest bathroom, like when you come in, because like it doesn't even have any words. Like it transcends language. So I'm gonna get that framed. This one is so cute. It says like, I heard you were drawing dinosaurs on my wall. And then there's like an old man that's like, you heard right. It's just so funny. I'll tag the artist below, like just, and then this one that's like kind of like a Great Bake Off type style. That's like, bakers, you have 10 minutes. And then like the little guy is like, they're gonna need more time. Like that's me. So this is gonna go in the kitchen. So I'm gonna frame those. And then I'm also gonna frame a couple of things that have just been lying around that I just never got framed. This little bird this bird you see everywhere in Bogota. Just to have like a little Bogota here with us. This is something my husband drew at a paint and sip, and we call her Brenda. And like, it's just silly. Like it's like a little, like, I don't know. I just honestly think that like, he transcended the paint time and like created something truly like beautiful here. And it's time to frame this. We've been sitting on that for a couple of years. I got this one at a flea market recently. Gorge. I don't know where I'll put that, but definitely gotta get that framed. I got this one. Oh, this one got bent. Oh, I gotta be more careful. I got this one in Cartagena. Isn't that just beautiful? Eventually, like this is kind of the inspo that I'm using for my kitchen when I redo it. But like for now, I'm like, this has to go somewhere. And then finally, this one we got in Bogota, which is a like rebellion poster. I love these. I have these all over my apartment in Bogota, but now I want to have one here in the studio as well. So this is going to go in the studio because it's a little like less living room material and more kind of like for my studio. So I want to frame those things as well this week. And I mean, that's pretty much all I want to do in terms of tasks, right? Like I don't want to like overwhelm myself with tasks this week. We also have to go into Dungha, which is the nearby city, because we have to do some paperwork. So I got to do that. But there is one more big thing that is not mandatory, but it would be kind of like a nice to have. And that is that I want to sew a dress. As I was cleaning my studio, I realized I forgot my sewing pedal, which is something that has happened to me before, but that's okay. I'm going to get more organized. I left it in Bogota. So there will be no sewing this week. However, I will be replacing that with finishing a book. I am currently reading the American Best Short Stories of 2025. I only have one short story left on there, so I'm not going to count that. But I am going to get one more book this week and hopefully finish it because I won't have time to sew. So there's really no excuse to not do a little bit of reading after work every day this week. I will let you all know when I pick my book and how it's going. Nowhere to put my serger. I haven't had to put it here yet because it was broken for months. But now I'm like, wait, like in my old setup, I used to have it on the table because I had nowhere else to put it. And it was fine here, but here in this particular studio, there are no plugs on this wall and there are no plugs on that wall. The only plugs are on this wall and like where the sewing machine are. So I think eventually maybe, I don't know. I feel like that's the other thing. I think it looks visually better on this table because there's not a lot of other things on this, but this is where I cut. So it did kind of sometimes get in the way when I was at the other place, but then again, I didn't have as much space to open the table. So it could work here eventually with like a connector that like kind of went around. But again, that's not the reality right now. So I'm thinking I'm just going to put this back on the sewing table, kind of push it to the back, and then kind of pull it forward every time that I need it. What I did do today is cry, and that is because Bad Bunny won the best album of the year last night at the Grammys. And if you've seen any of that sort of content, if you've seen his acceptance speech, it's just a very emotional moment for me and my homegirls. And it just like made me really think about just what it looks like when an artist is truly in sync with a message, is very clear about what they want to say, and isn't afraid to say it. I feel like that's the part that I'm the most impressed by. Hold on, let me sit down so I can explain it a little bit further. So like seeing somebody who is just so clear about what it is that he wants to say and is not afraid to say it, whether it's because he has no reason to be afraid, who knows, right? He's not afraid to alienate people. He's not, and the way in which that message then brings more people into his orbit, into his project, I think that is something we can all learn from. We are living in a time that is full of fear. I think everyone is kind of like either directly in the action, right, and fighting back and, throwing sort of like tear gas back at the ICE officers, or they're kind of like this, like, don't look at me, please, like, don't pick on me next. And that's just across workplaces, across different cultural groups. I think that there's a lot of us who are in that space of like being afraid to act because of the consequences that it might bring onto our lives. And not that like I'm only talking about like giving a speech at the Grammys, like that's a huge form of action, but it's more just like, what would the world look like if we were all kind of confident in that what we want to say about the world, what we want to do in the world will resonate for other people, right? Especially when that is coming from a place of trying to do good, of trying to make sure people have dignified lives. I don't know, my thoughts are a little jumbled. I felt very emotional because it's like, I don't know, what a beautiful moment. And it's just like that like sort of meme that's like another day now being from Puerto Rico. It's like definitely that today. I'm actually thinking that, especially since I'm not sewing this week, I'm going to turn all of these thoughts into a little bit of writing. I think that when my brain feels like this, like it's going in 100 different directions, it's a great time to sort of sit down and put it into words. So I'm going to write up Substack post about this. I will link it down below if you're interested in reading sort of my thoughts on Bad Bunny and music and art and how to like sort of overcome maybe the moment that we are in as a society. I also made my vision board last night, as I mentioned, which is maybe also why I'm emotional, because I think vision boards always put me in this place of dreaming. And a lot of my dreams this year are around collective action and speaking the truth and like not being afraid and like really going for it, because what do we have to lose, right? Like that kind of also joke that's like, the economy is so bad, you might as well follow your dreams, right? But anyways, here's my vision board. See if you can kind of see. Again, I kind of tend to go more abstract. I won't show you the back because I have all of my sort of dreaming and planning and vulnerability there. But I feel like this really represents, after I did journaling, I journaled for about 40 minutes. And then I mapped out my year for like 30 minutes. And then I went into the art and tried to make something. And a lot of it was like this idea of like, both taking action and being, really confident in what I'm saying, even if my voice shakes, and then also taking a step back, reflecting, connecting with other people. And so that's why a lot of this is like a sort of architectural conflict of like nature, but also maybe brutalism, like in all of these different parts. So I really feel like this represents what I want to be true for myself this year. And I'm going to hang it up here and have it as a constant little reminder that if nothing else, that sometimes with a little bit of space, you can take that jumbled mess in your brain and create a little something that helps you clarify, that helps you give you like sort of like a path forward, if you will. Okay, I finished a book this week, so I thought I would talk about it in what is going to become my library / office / right now it seems to be a home for the scorpions in this house. So if I see a scorpion, I'll be screaming, and it is what it is. I cleaned it in here. I want, I feel like in every video I'm like, oh, the scorpions. I do clean, but they're everywhere. So anyway, let's talk about the book. I actually thought I was going to be reading another book this week. I was like, oh, I'll finish my short story book and then I'll read another book. I don't know why I thought I was farther along in the short story collection. I actually was like 15% in. I think I kind of like forgot because I had been reading it on vacation and I was reading another short story collection, so maybe they got kind of mixed up in my head. But anyway, I finished the Best American Short Stories 2025. Again, this is one of my favorite books every year. It is something that I look forward to. It's a collection of the best short stories published in North America, or like, the United States. It does take authors from around the globe who established some sort of residency in the US. Anyway, so there's another collection that I really like, and that is the O. Henry Prize. That one is more international, but that one I ordered to my mom's house in a physical copy. So I'll be picking that up in the next couple weeks. What did I think about this collection? Okay, so I do think that they vary year to year. I think the editors bring in a lot in terms of their point of view. Last year's collection was guest edited by Lauren Groff, and I'm a very, very big Lauren Groff fan. She has an amazing short story collection herself, Florida. So I do think that maybe spoke a little bit more to me than this collection. I would say that this collection was interesting in that it was a lot more about these sort of like end of world themes. A lot of the collections or a lot of the stories had, settings that were either through the pandemic, in the pandemic, or in some sort of like imagined post-apocalyptic kind of world. And I thought that was really interesting. Like I thought that, obviously there was a message there from the author and, kind of what she wanted to say about the world. There were a couple that stood out to me the most. I would say that I really enjoyed one story called Unfathomably Deep. Oh my gosh. And that is by Sophie Madeline Dess. That story I liked. I thought it took me to a place where I was like, okay. So I thought that was really good. I also really enjoyed Yellow Tulips. That was in the Harvard Review this past year. That's by Nathan Curtis Roberts. I think that like every year there's a couple stories that are going to stick with you. And, that's what I love about short stories is that they kind of push your sort of worldview in a way, but also like sometimes take you into these small pockets of life that you might not know much about. That one is about a kind of like openly closeted Mormon with a disabled son, in that like everybody knows that he is, gay, but he has never been with a man, is Mormon, and it just kind of like, and it's through the pandemic, right? And his wife and slash his son's mother has left, but it seems like she was maybe a lesbian. Anyway, there's kind of like something there that is so intriguing to me, because it's almost like, they don't treat him nicely. Like his Mormon neighbors are not particularly nice or welcoming to him, and yet he doesn't seem to be particularly of the faith, in the way that we would think of like very religious people who are, closeted, whatever. So it's interesting to sort of see like how a human can kind of maybe make their own, can make choices sometimes that are not for the best for themselves, but it's just, I don't know. I think it's just sometimes humans, we always, maybe we make choices and we just accept what's in front of us instead of dreaming bigger, thinking bigger. I don't know. There was a lot there that I thought was pretty interesting. And then finally, the third story that I think I'll keep thinking about and was in, kind of ruminating through my head, was the 7 stories about Tammy. This was on Zoetrope, and it's by Elizabeth McCracken. That's definitely one that is very enjoyable. And usually with these stories, you can also find them published outside of this book, because usually they're published in some sort of web magazine, and then they submit them and then they put them in the book, right? But so you can probably find this one. Again, it's on Zoetrope, 7 stories about Tammy. It is so good. It's kind of like, it starts in the 80s, and it's about these sort of family dynamics surrounding this like older girlfriend of one of their relatives, who is Tammy. And it kind of moves through, the 90s to like the 2000s to like today. And it is beautifully written. I think it's like moving, funny. The setting is so strong. Like, even though it moves, like, exactly who these people are, exactly what they're living through. That's definitely a must read. I think that's one I'm going to pull into my collection. I like to keep like a running tab of short stories that I share with people. Oh my gosh, I sound like the guy in Pride and Prejudice who's like, I like to sprinkle the compliments. That's how I am, okay? Sometimes I just like pull out a little short story and I'm like, read this one. And I'm going to add that one to the list. I do think in the next couple of weeks, I want to do another video where I walk you through, in my opinion, the best short stories of the last 5 years, then the last 10 years, etc. I am a short story aholic because it is such a short way to sort of jump into these other worlds. And if you're somebody who's been trying to think through like, how do I get back into reading, or how do I get my attention span back, or how do I sort of like get my space or my brain back into an intellectual space because of all of the different factors that are, impeding that right now, I think short stories are a really great way to enter because they're so explosive, and they are so engaging and short and just digestible. So anyways, be on the lookout for that video in the next few weeks. 2025, All American Best. I do recommend you read it. Like, I recommend this book every single year. If you're looking for a gift for someone, it's a great gift. And if you're looking for something for yourself, because again, you're trying to get back into it, but maybe like there isn't a full novel that's gotten your attention, pick it up. You won't regret it. And also pick up the O. Henry Prize. I'll be reading that next, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah. All right. So other than that, I'm going to go to the gym today. And then a little bit later, I'm going to share with you all what I've been writing. It's been a very creative week. So yeah, I'll tell you all about that in a little bit. It is Sunday morning and I am heading back to Bogota because I have a work trip this week. So I'll be heading out to Miami and then to DC. That should be fun and interesting. But I wanted to share with you all what I've been writing because I will have posted it by the time this video comes out. I kind of spent all week gathering my ideas. I started writing around maybe Thursday, and I'm almost done. I need to put sort of like some finishing touches on it. I think at first the essay was about, like all of these feelings that I was having about Bad Bunny, his Grammy win, his upcoming Super Bowl performance, which is actually today. But then it kind of took on a little bit of a life of its own, and I started to connect it a little bit to what I have been thinking about recently around the sort of indigenous way of knowing, particularly the Muiscas, and this idea of like you kind of being your first home, and this sort of theory of how do you build community, and the thesis that you build community first by understanding and knowing yourself, right? And how that relates to knowing your culture, knowing your people, and how when you know your people, you know your culture, it is much more difficult for you to stand by and watch your neighbor get taken, for example, right? So that idea of how culture and music and art is all a way of knowing where you come from and knowing your people so that you can resist the oppressive systems that then might try to harm them. And also how the United States has systematically kind of disassembled our idea of culture, right? To the point where, like, if you think about what is American culture, that's like a very big debate, right? And conversation. Because a lot of times we'll default to thinking about the culture of our different ethnic groups if we belong to them, which means that there seems to be this like larger conversation about like what is white culture. And the idea is that it does exist. It's just that it has been made invisible as a way to isolate families, isolate people, and therefore make it easier for them to sort of stand back and let the horrors of fascism go down. All that to say that although the essay started with music and Bad Bunny, I think it ends up in this place of how do we learn about our histories and ourselves and our cultures as a way to show up and be present in this particular moment of social difficulty. Anyways, I hope you read it, and I will see you all next time.